also am very pleased to announce and introduce Mosaic's inaugural online class. So our course, Aqidat al-Awam, is the Universal Creed, and it'll be taught by Sheikh Omer Haseeb. And this course explores the essential teachings of Aqidah, the Islamic creed that forms the bedrock of a Muslim's beliefs, of values, and worldview. In a world of evolving challenges, this course reaffirms the timeless principles that guide Muslims in both this life and hereafter. So this 10-week course delves into the classical text of Aqidat al-Awam, authored by the esteemed 13th century Meccan scholar Imam Ahmad al-Marzuki of Al-Azhar University. This text provides a comprehensive summary of the fundamental beliefs every Muslim is obliged to hold. So this class will be starting Mondays, August 19th through October 21st at 8 p.m. Central. It'll be 10 weeks online. It'll be an online lecture with interactive Q&A sessions. The fee for the class is $200. The scholarships are available, so if you please let us know about that, and register online. This course is ideal for students, community leaders, and anyone interested in deepening their understanding of Islamic beliefs. Join us to develop a clear and holistic approach to articulating and living out your faith. So we hope to see you there. And now we'll go ahead and get started.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Thank you all for joining back again to our fifth session, I believe. Our fifth session. And this really hot summer's day. And the class that we've been taking and learning through, which is based off of a book by Imam As-Sulami, is called Al-Futuha, which is a book of chivalry, or the book of etiquettes, the book of manners. And last week, we went through the chapter on generosity. So if you guys remember, the chapter that we went through last week is essentially the chapter on the connection between people of honor and generosity. Like having ikram, to honor somebody, in the people of the kurama, or somebody who's kareem, the person that is generous. As well as this idea of karma, which obviously is here of karma, right? Which is antithetical to our theology, as it doesn't exist. We have qadar, but we don't have karma, and obviously we'll talk more about that in our Aqidah class, for those of you who want to understand how Muslims understand like what goes around comes around. But karma in the Arabic language is a grapevine tree. It's a grape tree that is very fresh, and it produces a lot of grapes. Right? So it produces a lot of grapes. So the idea of generosity and nobility is that from you comes a lot of good. And you do as much good as you possibly can. But this week, we began with truthfulness. So the first advice that the Imam talks about is truthfulness. And he says, be truthful. Kun sadiqan. Be people of truth. Kun sadiqan. He says, Abu Amr Muhammad ibn Ja'far and Ibn Matar and Ibn Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Abdullah declared that Allah said that Sufyan ibn Faqafi asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, teach him so he doesn't have to ask anybody anything ever again. So teach me one thing, O Messenger of Allah, such that I don't need to ask anything of you ever again. Like, I don't need to sit with you ever again. What's this fight? Like, explain to me Islam in a nutshell. Explain to me Islam in a nutshell, in a sentence. And the Prophet ﷺ says, قُلْ آمَنْتُ بِاللَّهِ وَكُنْ صَادِقًا. Say, I believe in Allah, and be as truthful as you possibly can. He goes through generosity, and you're gonna see this like link. Last week was generosity, advice number 16, 15, and 14. 17, he goes to truth. And then he goes directly into friendship and love. You're gonna see this. He goes into these three things. authors in ilm mu'allif al-kitab, which is a science on writing books, right? Writing books, to bind a book together, or an author. A mu'allif is a what? Mu'allif al-kitab is who is an author, somebody that wrote a book. Because they're binding pages together, they don't write things in random. So any hadith book that you've studied, if you guys know the 40 hadith collection, right? The 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, the 40 hadith of Sayyidah Aisha. Those 40 hadith are not written in random. They begin with the chapter of what? The hadith of what? Intention. Then they go to the hadith of Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, and then they go all the way to the end, to Wilayah, to closest to Allah. Or you'll read Sahih Bukhari. You guys know Sahih Bukhari? The most sound collection of Sahih books, of Sahih Hadith, Sahih sayings of the Prophet of God. They're also not written randomly. Likewise, this author does not write things randomly. So between generosity and love, he puts truth. And he said before you can get to love, the chapter on muhabba, of love, he says, kun sadiqan, be truthful. Be truthful. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ittaqullah. Be wary of Allah. Oh, you believe, be wary of Allah wherever you go. وَكُنْ مَعَ صَادِقِينَ. Be with the ones that are truthful. He didn't say be truthful. Kun ma'a sadiqin. Be with people that are truthful. Be in companies of truthfulness. Be with people that are honest. Be with people that exude honesty. For two reasons. The first one is Allah's name is what? Al-Haq. The truthful one. Ultimately, there's only one truth. And the one truth is Allah. Everything else that is not connected to God's sublime reality is falsehood. So Allah says in the Quran, قُلْ, say, قَدْ جَاءَكُمْ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ. Say that the truth has come and falsehood will fade. The truth has come and falsehood will what? It will fade. إِنَّ كَانَ بَاطِلٌ زَهُقًا. The nature of falsehood, that it will inevitably fade. Falsehood is temporal. So one of the things, if you study Aqidah, that we're going to study in our theology, Imam Marzuki mentions, is that everything is temporal except for Allah. Everything has a beginning and end, or a beginning and an end, or it just has a beginning. Meaning that the soul has a beginning, but it doesn't have an end. The soul is khalidina fiha abada. It'll be in heaven or hell forever, right? That's the reality of the ruh. Heaven starts off, but heaven it doesn't end. Heaven doesn't end. Hell doesn't end. The world ends, has a beginning and end. But the definition of the only thing that doesn't have a beginning and doesn't have an end is who? Is who? Not a trick question. God. Everything has a beginning and an end. Everything is muwaqqat. It has a capacity to it. Anything that is true is everlasting. Truths are everlasting, they're universal. The idea that God is one will never change. The idea that the Prophet ﷺ is a final prophet, there's no question. We're not changing that for anybody or anything. The Prophet ﷺ is a final prophet. That's what you believe in. That's why you're here, because you answered the call of the Prophet. And the Quran is true. It will never cease to not be true. Anything else that's false, lies, deception, the demonic waswasa, demonic whispers, your own soul, your own ego, your own desires, wealth, fame, all of it will go away. Because at its core of it, if it's not connected to the divine and met with God's gratitude, it'll end. It'll end. And it'll expose itself. It'll expose itself to be something that's false. Right? Falsehood will ever, you don't think, looking around the world right now, you're dealing with an election, and you're dealing with oppression, regimes that are built off of lies, occupation that is built off of something explicitly wrong, explicitly not true. Right? The Prophet ﷺ said that in the end of times, truth would be mistaken for falsehood, and falsehood would be mistaken for truth. Liars will be taken as rulers, and those that are truth will be people that are casted to the side. Right? Is that not what we're seeing? Isn't there? You're seeing the mutation of truth everywhere. So, those sublime realities and truths will remain. Falsehood will always be exposed. The liar will be exposed. They'll always be exposed. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ittaqi mimma da'i." Beware of the maker of claims. Ittaqi mimma da'i. Beware of the maker of claims. Not like insurance claims, but we're talking about people that claim to be something. They claim to be something. If you're claiming wealth and you say this is mine and I earned it, Allah will take it away from you. It's like, okay, now what? What if I took it away from you? What if you're a surgeon and that's how you make your money? Allah breaks your hand. Then what? Right? What happens if people claim in their own ability to do good? None of this good will happen if it wasn't for me. Right? We say وَلِلَّهِ مَثَلٌ الْأَعْلَى. There is no expression, there is no allegory except from Allah. Everything is from Allah. هَذَا مِنْ فَضْلِ رَبِّي. This is from Allah. So the people of truth will always, the attribute of the people of truth is they disassociate any goodness from themselves and they associate with the divine. Always. And the people of falsehood will always associate goodness with who? With themselves. They'll always credit themselves. That's why one of the Sufis of a certain time, they would say the word for I in Arabic is what? Huh? What's the word for I in Arabic? Not I. Ana. They used to say, when somebody used to knock on the door and say, who is it? They used to say, Ana wa a'udhu billahi min kalimatin ana. It's me and I seek refuge from the word me. It's me, and I seek refuge from the word me. Because they didn't want to associate anything with themselves. And I know you're like, oh, that's super extreme, right? That's wild. But they understood the idea of being so connected to me. If you're not seeing the externalities of that right now in the world you're living in, you're not going to call them crazy. You're going to be like, well, that makes total sense now. Because all people think about is what? Me, I did this, I did that. I achieved this, I did that. This is all from the blessings of your Lord. So he says, so that's the first one. The idea of associating yourself, any goodness with Allah. That's the first truth. The second is standing up for the truth wherever you go and wherever you are. The Prophet ﷺ said, قُلْ حَقْ وَلَوْ كَانَ مُرًّا. Say the truth even if it's bitter. Speak the truth even if it's bitter. Meaning, you're in the dog-eat-dog world of corporate America, and you're starting a business, you're starting an organization, you're starting a nonprofit, or you do good, you have to be willing to say, I'm not good enough for something and somebody's better than me. Somebody's better than me. And you know the story of Salman al-Farsi and the Battle of the Trench, where the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, and for time's sake I'll paraphrase, they were being flanked by all of the disbelievers who were attacking the enemies of Allah and His Messenger. And Salman al-Farsi is from Persia. And how old was Salman al-Farsi when he passed away? Do you guys know? He was 250 years old when he passed away. So he already had years of experience. 100-something years of experience. And Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid and the Prophet developed a plan. Sayyidina Khalid says, if I may interject, O Messenger of Allah, is what you're saying from God or from you? He said, it's from me. Look at that. Is this a command from Allah that we have to be in the front of the battlefields? Or is this from you? He said, it's from me. He said, then may I suggest something? Meaning, if it was a command from Allah, he would say, Sama'na wa ta'na. Khalas, if Allah told you to do this, then I'll do it. But then he says, is this from you? He said, it's from me. May I suggest something? Of course. And he says, we should build a trench around where we are. And they built a trench. And what happened? Salman became the guy who masterminded the battle of the trench and saved all the Muslims from their own demise. So to be able to be humble enough to be like, somebody may know better than me. Say the truth even if it's bitter. And say the truth even if it's against you. The Messenger of Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم والوالدين والأقربين وإن يكون غنيا فقيرا الله أولى بهما. That all you who believe, stand up to justice, even if it's against yourselves and your parents and your close kin and the wealthy or the poor amongst you. Right? God has more priority over them. Allah has more priority over your parents, over yourselves, over your community, over your family, over your lineage, over your friends group, over your little Chicago clique, over your Snapchat street buddies, over your, the people on your team, the people that look like you. Allah has complete authority and priority over you and the truth over them. So the first person you owe the truth to is whom? Is Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, always. You owe the truth to Allah. And he says, Allah awla bi fala tattabi'ul hawa. This is a beautiful caveat. And don't follow your desires. How often when we do social justice and activism, are we following our desires or are we following God's truth? How far are we following our desires? We're doing something that makes us feel good. Clicktivism, you just click on a thing. Or there's something explicitly impermissible or against Allah and His Messenger and against all that is good and good conscience, but we believe the ends is greater than the means, so we do anyways. Don't follow your desires. Or I'm engaging in activism or community work so I can find some sort of clout in the community, and somebody says, oh, you're part of something, I can have my name on the plaque of the building. فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ. Don't follow your desires. Don't follow your desires. How many of us would be involved in good work of community activism if we had no credit? Nobody remembers our name. Right? How many of the companions named that were in Uhud that you even remember? Right? How many of their names you remember? How many of the people that fought the British Raj from 1930 to 1947, their names do you even remember? How many people right now are the ones who are fighting in the trenches of Gaza's names are you ever going to remember? Right? How many of you remember the names of and the point is you're not going to remember all of them, but you're going to honor their legacy. How many of the people who died in Baqi', in Jannat al-Baqi', are names you actually remember? Or are your real heroes? فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ. Am I really checking yourself? Like, am I really doing this for all that is good and for God? Or for my own desires, or because I'm going to post this on my Instagram stories? Not that you should encourage people to good and do things like that, but your intention should be to encourage people for good, not to show people that you're doing good. Because if you're showing people that good, if you're doing good, that comes from what's called vanity, riyah. From vanity. And no good comes out of that. Meaning, in order for me to have clout, there has to be problems in the community. I'm not seeking to solve any issues. And those of you that are engaged in community work, you guys know the example of the worms, the jar of worms, the can of worms. I'm going to open up a can of worms. Right? You've heard about this? There's usually a can of worms. And there are three types of people when it comes to cleaning the can of worms. The first one, they'll neglect it and they say it doesn't exist. So they'll say, yeah, our community is great. Nobody's leaving Islam. Alhamdulillah, everything's great. Nobody has doubts over their Islam. MashaAllah, the kids are all right. Everybody's good. Right? Everybody's okay. Yeah, there's no depression in the Muslim community. We have God. We have the Quran. Why would we be depressed? We have faith, right? They completely neglect the reality on the ground. And the second will recognize the can of worms, will realize it exists, but all they'll do is talk about it. They'll make YouTube videos about it. They'll make reels about it. They'll give khutbahs about it, but they'll never do anything about it. Why? Because in order for those people to actually have their word to matter or to have something to talk about, the can of worms has to exist. The can of worms has to exist. That's their bread and butter. But then who are the people who are the sadiqeen that Allah Ta'ala is mentioning? The people that are shuhada lillah, they're not talking about it, they're not mentioning it, but they're getting their hands ready, they're opening up the can of worms and they're cleaning it. Those are the people of sidq. They're cleaning it. They're on the streets busy cleaning. They're cleaning the streets. They're the street sweepers. They're the ones who, when we're arguing at night, or in the daytime, they're saving the world at night. Right? Those are the people called shuhada lillah. So Allah says, فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ. And he says, Jalla Jalaluhu, he says, وَأَن تَعْدِلُوا أَوْ تَلُوا وَأَوْ تَعْرِضُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْلَمُونَ خَبِيرٌ. He says, don't turn away and don't dilute the truth. Don't dilute the truth. when you deal with being truthful, you have to have the courage to say the profoundly unadulterated truth, always. And if the Muslims are in the wrong, then we're against the Muslims. And if the disbelievers are in the wrong, then we're against the disbelievers. Period. We are with the truth, whether it's Democrat or Republican, left or right, or this or that. We're with the people of truth. We don't give any partisanship to anything except for we have our loyalty with God and our loyalty with the truth. That's who we're with. That's who we're with. So a lot of times when you're just like, oh, can I work with this community or this? Can I work with the LGBTQ community? Can I work with this community? Can I work with like the ultra conservative right? If they're on the truth in that regard, then you can work with them. But if they go outside of the truth and it goes above our pay grade, or not saying it goes above our sort of framework of what is right and wrong, and things start to get it starts to get diluted, then we say, oh, it's too much for us. It's too much for us. Working with truth and working with goodness does not mean you're validating everything that person believes and does. In the truth of that is in Sahih Bukhari. It's in Sahih Bukhari when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is riding his camel and his camel falls. Qaswa. فَسَقَطَ الْقَصْوَةَ. It falls. And the companion said, what happened to the riding animals? Meaning we didn't have enough food to feed even Qaswa so she can have her back straight. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, like, what do we do about the Quraysh? What do we do about them? And he pointed to the Quraysh in the height of their jahiliyyah, their ignorance, and he said, by Allah, if they called towards good, even in their state of complete jahiliyyah, I would encourage them in good. I would enjoy them in good. But ta'awun fi birri wal taqwa, and enjoin towards good in righteousness. وَلَا تَعَوُنْ فِي إِثْمٍ وَالنِّسْيَانِ. And don't enjoin towards wretchedness and evil things. So if the Muslims are doing explicitly evil things, you just don't engage in it. If they're doing explicitly things that are wretched, you don't engage in it. If they're oppressive, you don't engage in it. They have nothing to do with it. Like when Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid killed the prisoners of war, the Prophet, without any, and this is at a time, radiallahu anhu, may Allah have mercy on, may Allah Ta'ala be pleased with them. The dua of the Messenger of God was, Allahumma inni bari'un bima fa'ala Khalid. Oh Allah, I am innocent of what Khalid bin Walid has done. Right? Even though he's what? He's the greatest, one of the greatest companions that ever lived. One of the greatest companions. You wouldn't have Islam today if it wasn't the spread of Islam, the conquest of Islam, if it wasn't for Sayyidina Khalid. And the Prophet can still be like, you're amazing, but in this regard, I can't co-sign this. You don't get my endorsement, Sayyidina Khalid. And Sayyidina Khalid makes tawbah. That's the tawbah of Sayyidina Khalid. Right? So even the companions had tawbah when they made mistakes. So you do something, you make ijtihad, you make a rightful ruling, you make a rightful injunction in your head, like, oh, should I engage in this, should I not engage in this? If you engage in it and you realize that, oh, this may not have been the most smartest, intelligent move to make, you just make tawbah and you go on to the next good thing. Right? So the two types of truth with yourself, be true to yourself, and be true to your own strengths and your weaknesses. And the second is stand up for truth wherever you are. And don't follow your desires. Even if it's against your family, your kin, whatever, that doesn't mean you can break family ties, but that means that you can understand when mama's wrong. As much as I love mama, when mama's wrong. Oh, you're wrong. As much as, when your kids are wrong, your kids are wrong. That doesn't mean that it's a zero-sum game. That means if you don't present the truth to the people that are closest to you, and you don't have the courage to speak truth to the people that are closest to you in fear of like what's going to happen in a relationship, you're not going to be able to speak truth to a tyrannical ruler. You're not going to be able to speak truth. The most difficult truths to speak are speaking truth to the people that you love and the people that are closest to you. It's easy to speak truth to people you don't have any relationship with, right? But it's difficult to speak truth and to correct and not to have that sort of that relationship bias with people that are actually close to you. And that's why the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the greatest jihad is قول الحق عند السلطان الجائر. Speaking truth to who? A tyrannical ruler. And we're often obviously thinking about who? We got to talk to Bibi, the tyrannical ruler, Shaitan, the pharaoh of our time. But we're not talking about tyrannical rulerships within our own communities, within our own families, within domestic issues that we know that are happening, without abusive financial things within our community that we know are happening. that we're still aware of. But they're somebody's khala, sons, somebody's relations, so we're not going to ruin that thing, so we're not going to say anything. Why should we? Right, you don't understand. We go way back. We have a village in Karachi, somebody gave somebody water and somebody fed somebody's biryani, invited somebody to whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then we're just like, we don't want to ruin that relationship. We don't want to ruin that relationship. Well, how many relationships are going to ruin if you're going to let this keep going? That's the second one, is being very clear about what the truth is. And the last one, to wrap up the truth, is they asked the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man came and said, Ya Rasulullah, we discussed the hadith last week. He said, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, no, none of you will enter paradise. None of you enter paradise. In your heart is a mustard seed of arrogance. And a man says, Ya Rasulullah, but a person likes good clothes and good shoes. إنما يحب الملابس الجميل والنعلين الجميل. الملابس الحسنى والنعلين الحسنى. He likes good clothes and he likes good shoes. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah is beautiful and what? And He loves beauty. And He says arrogance is not liking things that are beautiful, but rather arrogance is batrul haqq wa ghadd al-nas. Denying the truth when it's right in front of you and looking down on people. Denying truth when it's right in front of you. So you have to make the Islam as a whole is recognizing all forms of truth, whether you like it, whether I don't like it, whether we don't like it, or whether you like it. If it's bitter or if it's sweet, it doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. And there's a truth of faith. God is one. The Prophet is the last Prophet of God, alayhi salatu wasalam. And everything the Prophet said, if he had said it, it is the truth. And the Quran is revelation. There's no if, what, how, this, what about it. It is the unadulterated truth from the heavens. That the decree is real. That the day of judgment is real. And there'll be a time where we stand in front of God and we're going to have to be accountable for everything we said, didn't say. Love, everything in between, and we ask Allah for His mercy that we don't have to be answerable for anything. Right? Those truths will never, ever, 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 ever leave. No matter what. No matter what. No matter who's in power. No matter who's in power. مالك الملك تؤتي ملك من تشاء تملك وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء. Right? Allah, you're the King of Kings. You put in power who you decide to put in power. You honor those who you want to honor. You remove people who you want to remove. And you debase those that you want to debase. Everything's in your hand. Everything's in your hand is the truth, Ya Allah. In your hand is goodness. Any good comes from you. That truth will never go away. No matter what. And all of those truths, if your iman is strong, you'll be willing to die for all of those truths. And more importantly, you'll be willing to live for all of those truths. Right? That is truth. And then the next advice goes directly into this. If you understand all of these truths, he says, be satisfied with little for yourself and wish a lot for other people. Through Abu Bakr al-Diwanji, we hear that the Prophet said, Khayrul ummati, the best of my people, of my ummah will enter paradise. Not because of their achievements, but because of the mercy of God and their quality of being satisfied with little for themselves and extreme generosity towards other people. Right? This is known as qana'a. Everybody say qana'a. Qana'a. Qaf, noon, ayn, Q-A-N-A apostrophe. Qana'a. Qana'a is to be pleased with. So you have two types of pleasures, which is good pleasure. Rida, which is being pleased with something. Rida, to be pleased. Radiyallahu anhu wa yurdu anhu. Allah is pleased with them, they're pleased with Him. That's pleasure of God. Rida, to just be in a state of satisfaction. But qan'ah is to be pleased with whatever you have whenever you have it. If you have something, then you're pleased with it. And if you don't have something, then you're not pleased with it. Na'am. And that's Sayyidina Anas radiallahu anha said, or Sayyidina Abu Hurairah said, the Prophet said, لَيْسَ الْغَنِي عَنْ كَثْرِ الْعَبْدِ, that wealth is not to have a lot of things. وَلَكِنْ الْغِنَاء al-ghina an-nafs. But real wealth is enrichment of the soul. So the question is, how okay am I when I don't have the things I think I need? How okay am I, and this is one of the trippiest parts that we haven't wrestled with as modern people, is how okay am I when I'm alone? Have I mastered the art of having nothing and nobody and being alone? If you can't be alone with yourself for an extensive period of time, you can have all of the wealth, all of the cars, all of the jewelry, all of this, the latest iPhone, but you're not somebody of wealth in the eyes of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. You're somebody who's impoverished in the eyes of Allah because you're in the need of other things. You need things. When the person of Allah is in the need of God, he's in a state of the need of God. This is called the station of faqr, of poverty. The dua of Sayyidina Musa, Rabbi lima anzalta bi min al-khayr. Oh Allah, all the good that you have given me, for me, faqir. I'm in a state of complete need. Like I actually, just because I have that thing that I always wanted, I have the latest Balenciagas that I wanted, that's just going to fulfill another need, then I'm going to need the new ones when they came out. I need the new Yeezys when they came out. I need more material things. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. No, they're going to gather and gather and gather until they reach their grave. You spend your whole life trying to get more and more and more until you do what? You die with it. Until you die with it. Then what? Then what? And then you said, and you look at the Hadith sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَرُزِقَ كَفَافًا وَقَنَعَ اللَّهُ بِمَا أَتَاهُ. Those that are successful are the ones that submitted. They have been provided from which is sufficient for them, and they're pleased with what God has given them. They're pleased with what God has given them. They're pleased with what Allah has given them. And there was a relation where Sayyidina Bilal, the Prophet of God ﷺ, entered the room of Sayyidina Bilal and he found a pile of dates reaching the ceiling. Pile of dates. And dates with the Quraysh, or the Arabs at that time, was everything. Two things, dates and cream. Right? That was everything. If somebody had dates, a lot of dates, a lot of cream, you put dates and cream in the dates, this was considered like caviar. Beluga caviar for Arabs. This was it. And he sees it in the house of Sayyidina Bilal, and he says, Ma hadha ya Bilal, what is this? These are dates that I have stored for you, Ya Rasulullah. Like I just saved up for you. So he thought he was doing something for the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and he says, Waylaka ya Bilal. He says, woe unto you, Ya Bilal. Are you not afraid that they will become your fumes in the hellfire? It's like, what are you talking about? I just collected dates for you. And he said, oh Bilal, spend them in charity. Oh Bilal, and do not fear that the one upon the throne will leave you with nothing. Meaning, if you have a surplus of things, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? If you have a surplus of time, what are you doing with your surplus of time? If you have a surplus of money, what are you doing with your surplus of money? If you have a surplus of talent, what are you doing with your surplus of talent? If you have a surplus of knowledge, what are you doing with your surplus of knowledge? What are you doing with what you have? Are you giving back to the community, or are you going to die with it? And then what? You guys know the saying, you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. You guys know a hearse? A hearse carries... What's a hearse? It carries the funeral coffins. You never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. They never take it with you when you're gone. So what are you doing with it? And most of us don't realize how much of the things that we have that Allah has given us we're going to be accounted for. Now, does that mean we don't spend our wealth for things that we like? Absolutely not. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ أَن يَرَى أَثَرَ النِّعْمَةِ عَلَى عَبْدِهِ. Allah loves to see the byproducts of His blessings upon His servant. So if you get something that you like, you've been saving up for that watch. There's no zakat on watches because it's considered halal. So those who like watching enthusiasts, there's no zakat on watching. But you're looking for that Jaeger that you've been keeping your eye on for years. And you've fulfilled all of the needs of your family and your community. You have a surplus and you get something for yourself. And you say, Alhamdulillah, ni'matillah, Alhamdulillah, from the blessing of Allah. Allah loves to see it. Allah gets happy to see it. But you also balance that with actually spending your wealth for yourself and your community and things like that. Right? And also making sure that you're not spending enough of your wealth to leave your community destitute. A man came to the Rasul and said, Ya Rasulullah, should I leave my wealth should I leave it to my children? Or should I give it all in charity? He said, give some to charity, but give some to your children, such that your children do not, it is better for you for your children to be mustaqillan, to be independent, rather to be begging for people. So Muslims have to commit in the state of generosity and in the name of satisfaction to intercommunal generation, self-sustainability. And this is how to look at the world as empire builders, as community builders. That our communities aren't sustained just by doing like, oh, we're going to do donations. If we have such and such, then we'll sustain our communities. If we have this and this, then we'll invest in young people. No, it means we actually look 7, 10, 9 generations, and what are we building for the 10, 15, 20 generations of people in these communities? Do you guys know the 7-generation rule of the Native Americans? Actually, what is it? It is the Native American system. What is 7-generation rule?
It means that you shouldn't consider yourself, but you should do things, thinking of things for the next 7 generations to come.
You what? The last part?
You should do things not to think of just yourself, but for the next 7 generations.
Allahu Akbar. Now what? That the Native American elders, may Allah protect them and give them izzah, ya Rabbil Alameen, that they used to never make a decision unless they looked how it would affect 7 generations from now. How would it affect 7 generations from now? And that's how we're thinking, right? Or are we spending the chandelier in the masjid, may Allah protect our jamas, masjids? Does it actually affect our generation 7 generations from now? Right? Does that mean, look, no, you guys are getting twisted. Everybody's saying it's not important to beautify your mosques? خُذُوا زِنَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ, Allah says. Right? But what does He say? وَلَا تَصْرِفُوا. And don't what? Don't transgress. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it because you're not allocating the responsibility Allah has given to you to the generations that need it. That means that you got like, why can't we have the next Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ghazali come from our loins, in our progeny, as well as the Farabi and the poets and the hospitalists and the ruler and the next president of the United States? That we could, there's no question that if a Muslim who has our values, our best interests at heart, and the best interests of those that are people of good conscience, we're just like, boom, we're done. Well, how much you need? No questions asked. How do we put you in office? What do we do? What's our, right? That's how believers think. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, 3, before we get to the next one. كَرَهَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ ثَلَاث. Allah has made 3 things hated for you. What are those 3 things? He said, كَثْرَ السُّؤَالِ. A lot of dumb questions. A lot of useless questions. What happened with such and such? What happened with such and such? No, they got. What happened? They're not married. SubhanAllah. What happened? What happened to them? Oh my God. Right? Did you hear about so and so? Did you hear about such and such? A lot of dumb questions. He just destroyed the people before you. The second, وَقِيلَ وَقَالَ. He said, she said. Which are, mashallah, the millennial Muslims of Generation America have mastered the art of he said, she said. Right? Did you hear what such and such said? Did you hear what happened in that place? Oh my God, subhanAllah. Did you hear what happened to Fatima? Sorry, hypothetical Fatima. Right? Did you hear what happened to Abbas and Fatima? Oh my God, they went through it. Are they a thing? Are they not a thing? I don't know. Should we ask them? Should we go through the grapevine? Did you see them at the coffee shop in that one place? Huh? قِيلَ وَقَالِ. قِيلَ وَقَالِ. قِيلَ وَقَالِ. Allah hates it. And the third one is what? أَضِّعِ الْمَالِ. To misuse your wealth. To misuse the community's wealth. Right? Be generous as you possibly can, but intelligently generous into how do we sustain proper communities. Now, and the extreme example is Imam Ghazali says that the Prophet ﷺ was the most generous of people, ajwad nas, and he would not pass a night if he had gold or silver coin with him. If he had any surplus, he could find no one to give it to at nighttime, and nighttime suddenly arrived, he would not retire to his house, except he would go out and look for somebody to donate his surplus to. Donate his surplus to. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alayhi salatu wa sallam tasliman kathira. Na'am. And when it comes to, and this is going to be a little agitational. Now we talked about this on the micro level, our community, on the macro level. Imam Abu Sufyan, he said, Athawri said, Inna ha'ula muluk qad taraku lakum al-akhirah, fa'atruku lahum ad-dunya. These kings, and he's talking about corrupt leadership. He's talking about people of dominion. They have left the hereafter for this world. الذين يشترون حياة الدنيا على حياة الآخرة فلهم عذاب أليم. As for those that have purchased this world for the next world, they have a great punishment. He says, so my advice to you, Sufyan al-Thawri says, leave this world for the next world. Leave this world to them. Give them everything. Give them everything. Don't negotiate. We don't negotiate with people of dunya. We don't negotiate with people of dunya. Give them the dunya. If they want it, they can take it. We negotiate with people of the akhirah that have good ground. We're satisfied. And once you have that in your heart, Allah will give you victory when you haven't even expected it, because you're seeking good and your conscience will be clear. And you're not being people who's bought out and sold by people of dunya. Your wealth is not being given to people, being bought out and sold by people of dunya. We ask Allah for khair and afiyah. Now the next advice, so look, he talks about what? Generosity. What's the first one? Hold on. He talks about truth, and then he talks about be satisfied with little for yourself and abundance for others. If you can do. He said, if you can do two of these things, you do the next. The 19th, وَحِبُّ أَنفُسُكُمْ وَيُزُورُكُمْ لِلَّهِ. Love each other and frequent each other for the sake of God. Through the Muhammad ibn Abdullah, I hear the Prophet of Allah say through the Prophet, the ones who love each other for my sake deserve my love. Ya Allah. The ones who love each other for my sake, they deserve my love. What does it mean to love people for the sake of Allah? They came to the Messenger of Allah and they said, Ya Rasulullah, tell me something. If I do it, God will love me and the people will love me. He said, Izhud min dunyakum yuhibbukum Allah. Be indifferent from this world. Don't have expectations of this world. Allah will love you. He said, "What izhud ma bayna aydi nas." Be indifferent from what is between the hands of the people. People will love you. Meaning, do I love Allah? Have you ever heard of this? There's a book called Soul Searching. If you guys want to take notes. There's a book called Soul Searching by Christian Smith. He says that the religion of people of our time, this was like circa 2009, he says is moralistic, therapeutic deism. Moralistic, therapeutic deism. And he took a survey of college campus people who ascribe to religion, and he comes to this conclusion. Moralistic, the religion of America, of young America, is moralistic in that my morals are kind of like not based off of anything except like what I deem to be right. It's just I've inherited my morals. Therapeutic, I only speak to God when? Finals, MCAT. Rishta comes in. That's the only time I speak to God. Somebody passed, God forbid, passed away in the family. You see the lights when you went 10 over. You say, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi, Ya Rabbi. Right? Like, just let this, let me go for this ticket. That's when you start to like, that's the only time you call upon God. Therapeutic. God is my personal therapist. That's it. Deism. Bye-bye, God. Once I need you back in the picture, I'll call you again. Otherwise, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. That's the theology of modern America. Is this far from the truth? Do you believe this to be far from the truth? Can you agree on this? Loving God and being indifferent is I love Allah whether good afflicts me or bad afflicts me or this or that. Allah is Allah. Ya Rabbi, I don't love you for any reasons except that you're Allah. As Rabbi al-Adawiyah, Ya Allah, if I worship you for fear of the fire, then throw me in it. And if I worship you for hope of the garden, then prohibit it from me. But make me somebody that loves you because you're Allah. It makes me love you because you're Allah, and that's it. Like, I just love you because you're God. Don't make that dua. I wouldn't make that dua. Because I know I'm not there yet. Like, inshallah, Ya Rabbi, whatever it is, just give me paradise. But her station was so high, it's like, whether paradise existed or hell existed, or I get good or I get that, it doesn't matter. I love you for Allah. Have you guys heard of a great Muslim Californian poet? His name is Abdul Hayy. He passed away from cancer. One of the first generation of Muslim converts in the 70s. He was afflicted with cancer. And he wrote a poem when he got cancer, terminal cancer. They said it's over. You're going to get it stage 4. And if you guys know people that have been afflicted with terminal illness, it's not easy to hear that news, let alone deliver that news. In his poem, he writes that night, Ya Allah, what have you done except of what you do, and who are we to complain? That was his call to Allah. What have you done? What do you do except what you do? And who are we to complain? فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانَ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ وَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَمُهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي. As for the human being, when they do good, when good is given to them, and God honors them, and He provides for them, they say what? Ya Allah, you have honored me. فَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ. But when they're put into tribulation, فَقَدَّرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ. And Allah strips of them of all their privileges. يَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانِ. Oh Lord, now you've disgraced me. And Allah says, كَلَّا بَلْ لَا تُكْرِمُونَ الْيَتِيمَ. No, I gave you all these things. You didn't honor the orphan. وَلَا تَحَنُّوا طَعَامَ الْمِسْكِينِ. You didn't feed the people that need, right, money. And you started like falling in love with the dunya. So I just took it away from you. You put it over me, so I took it away from you. And you love God because Allah created you, and that's it. You have almost this romantic relationship with your Creator. It's beautiful. Like you actually have this. Like when prayer time comes, are you excited to see Allah? Right? Where am I? Allah asks every single night, Aina mutahabina fiya. Where are the people that wake up for my love and they seek for my forgiveness, such that I'll forgive them? They just have to ask, and I'll forgive them. I'll just forgive them. Such that, and this is the tricky part, and we've spoken about this in, like, if you're a Muslim, practicing, like, I don't understand this idea, like, I'm not a practicing Muslim. Bro, being a practicing Muslim is the easiest thing on the face of this earth. It's being considered like, all you gotta do is say there's no God but God. Sayyidina Rasulullah is a messenger of Allah. And you pray 5 times a day. That's it. You give 2.5 of your wealth to zakat. Your income tax is 30%. 2.5. And then you do what? You fast Ramadan, and if you can't, go to Hajj. That's it. And everything else increases you in the stage of wilayah, being closer and closer and closer and closer to Allah. What do you have to complain? What is Allah asking for you? I've given you everything that you've asked for. Like, what more did you ask for? And then Allah says, what? If you ask for the dunya, I'll give it to it. I'll give you the dunya and the hadith Qudsi, and you'll chase each other like animals in the wild. So love people for the sake of Allah. Those that love you, so you love Allah just for His sake. The first one, and Allah will love you. And you're indifferent from what is between the hands of the people, and people love you. Do you love me because of what I have? Do you love you clout chasing? Is that what you love me? Do you love me because I got a nice house? Do you love me because I throw the best parties? Do you love me because I'm connected to some people and like really being my friend is a networking event for you? Or do you just love me for me? Or do you just love me for me? If I didn't have anything, would you love me? If you did, would you even love me in the first place? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, if any of you love your brother or your sister, then tell them. Then tell them, inform them. Tell them that you love them. And he says, whoever love each other for my sake deserve my love. The ones that give what comes to them in abundance, not what comes to them, not what they need, in abundance. In abundance. In abundance. Like I've given you a lot. If they just give a little for my sake to somebody else, they deserve my love. They deserve my love. And the ones who frequently visit each other for my sake, they deserve my love. You need two people. It takes two to tango. Two people visit each other. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Prophet ﷺ visited Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq twice in one day, the morning and the nighttime. His best friend. Right? The al-amal ziyarah. To visit people, to do ziyarah to people, to visit your elders, to visit your grandparents before they're not going to be there anymore. And all of them say what? Was dirt. If they were alive, I would have done this. If they were still here, I would have done this. Well, they are. What are you doing? Right? If they are alive, what are you doing? Are you taking advantage of the fact that, there are people that are important. There are people that Allah has given you relations with. Are you going to keep those relations? And this doesn't mean you visit them all the time or you burn out. It means you spend some time of your week, of your month, just doing a little bit of ziyarah to them. And making ziyarah, by the way, as the sunnah wal jama'ah, to visit the dead. To visit the dead, the ones that are deceased. And ask forgiveness from them. And seek intercession from the good that they have done. Right? This is from the practice of the Prophet ﷺ. What people tell you that is not whatever. Nasallallahu al-afiyah. But this is from the sunnah of Habib Sallallahu. He visits Baqiyah every single Thursday night. He used to go to Baqiyah. He used to speak to the people of Baqiyah. He used to go to Sayyidina Hamza and he used to speak to Sayyidina Hamza. To visiting the ones that are alive and visiting the ones that are passed away. And the Prophet Sallallahu, and it was related about love. Now there are a few words for love in Arabic before I continue. The first one is ishq. Al-ashaqa. Ishq is, you guys know it, like you've been through it, all of you at some point. You sit in somebody's DMs. That's ishq. And it is a type of I'm almost intoxicated with somebody's love, how beautiful somebody is. And that's usually between a man and a woman. But generally it's related to the ashiqeen, or the lovers of Allah, and they're intoxicated in God's love. But the point is they can't even think. Right? Boy got so many feelings he wasn't even thinking straight. What are you talking about? It's ishq. And an ishq is a vine that wraps around a tree and it kills it. That's ishq. And then you have what's called hub. Al-hub. And hub comes from al-ahbab, which are seeds that are planted and nurtured. And those seeds that are planted and nurtured become something called either safa, which are the chosen type of love. Mustafa, alayhi salatu wasalam, is a chosen one, right? Or the ghurama, which is romantic type of muhabba, of love. Or what's called the ultimate level of love, called wudda. Wudda. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ الرَّحْمَنُ الْوُدَّةَ. As for the one that do good and they believe, God puts love between them. He puts wudda between them. The natural tendency of believing and doing good things, Allah Ta'ala puts love between people, between communities. If there is no love in your community if you don't love your community, it's because your community is not engaging in good. And your community is not doing anything. It's like sort of a cult. It's not really a community, it sort of stays there, there's membership, I'm part of this group, and that's it. But a community is living and breathing, and they do iman, they have faith, and amal salih, and righteous actions. Right? They actually engage with people. And the ones of wudda, the ones of wudud, Allah Ta'ala talks about them in the Quran, and He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu man yartadda minkum min dinihi. As for the ones that yartadda min dinihi, that they leave, they turn away from religion. What's irtad? What's irtad? Murtad. What's a murtad? You know what a murtad is? Huh? Is what? That's taraddud. Is a murtad. But irtad, the answer is to turn away. We're very close. Very close. You're here for ala hafatin. Is what? Is an apostate. Somebody that's apostated from religion. How many of you know people that have left Islam? Raise your hand. People left this religion. You know people that have left Islam, family members that have left Islam. May Allah bring them back to the faith, inshallah ta'ala, and protect us from ever leaving Islam. But yartadda min dinihi, the ones that have left. Allah could have said, He brings forth from the people imams. He brings forth from the people women that only wear appropriate hijab. He brings people that look super Muslim. He brings forth the people that are sajidin. He brings people who are khalis. He gives them any adjective and all of them may be true. But Allah said, فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِي بِقَوْمٍ يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَهُ. That He brings forth from people that have left, a people that love Him and He loves them. Meaning the nature of leaving Islam is I ran out of love to give, or I wasn't loved enough within the faith, so I feel like there's no more love here. What's love got to do with it? And I left Islam. Because what's love got to do with it? And I loved Islam. When God doesn't love me, why should I be here in the first place? If I'm taught that God doesn't love me, then I don't love Allah. Why would I love something that I'm taught that is almost this like evil sort of third-rate relationship with my Creator? Allah will replace for them a people that He loves them and they love Him. يحبونه أذلة على مؤمنين وعزة على الكافرين يجاهدون في سبيل الله. My humility is for the ones that believe. They're humble. وعزتي, and my might is upon the people who completely disbelieve in my reality. ويجاهدون في سبيل الله ولا يخافون لومة لائم. This is it. This is the killer. That they strive every day for the sake of Allah. This is a single mom that works. It has to take 2 jobs. It takes a bus, but still has to manage to pray. And still got her dhikr, we can say Ya Latif 100 times. For the guy that has lost his job and that has to work at FedEx and cover his college tuition and be the breadwinner at home. And he's just doing this for the sake of Allah. And he can take the job that is unethical, but he chooses to work here. Why? Yujahiduna fi sabilillah. Period. The guy that gets tempted by the dunya, an old girl says, hey, what's up? And he says, no, really. And he says, Amantu billah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. I fear Allah. I fear Allah. I'm not going to put myself in this situation. Khalas. Because of Allah. Just because of Allah. Yujahiduna. You talk about getting in a battlefield. I'm talking about fighting your nafs. And being real with the truth that within yourself. And be like, this is my struggle. This is the thing that's going to kill me. And kill my relationship with Allah. I would rather wake up saying Allah and be impoverished than have everything this world has and not know who my Creator is. Yujahiduna fi sabilillah. I'll fight. If this is what it means to fight, I'll fight. If this is what it means to have you, Allah Ta'ala, in my life, I'll have you. La yukhafuna lawmata la'im. You know what that means? They don't fear the haters when they hate. They don't fear complainers when they complain. When they hate on you, they don't care. La yukhafuna lawmata la'im. ذَلِكَ فَضْلٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. That's from the blessings of Allah. He gives it to who He chooses. So if you wake up in the morning and you say, I do Islam as best as I can, and I do Fajr as best as I can, and I don't cheat in my tax returns because Allah is watching me, and I'm somebody of truth because God watched me, and I love Allah and I love the Prophet and I'm a struggling Muslim woman trying to figure out how to be somebody who's working in divorce and trying to find a spouse, but I'm not going to transgress because Allah's with me. He's going to have my back and He's going to give what's better for me. If you wake up in the morning believing that means you're chosen, you're appointed by Allah. لا يخافون لومة لائم. If you were from the black church, they would say what? I'm too blessed to be stressed, I'm too anointed to be disappointed. I'm too blessed to be stressed, and I'm too anointed to be disappointed. I'm too blessed to be worried about all of the noise of what people are talking about. And all of the haters. And all of these people saying like, you're really going to wear that to work? You're really going to put your sink in and take your shoes off? What are the co-workers going to think? Yeah, if this is what my Lord wants for me, it's what my Lord wants for me. Right? This is muhabba. This is muhabba. In kuntum tuhibbun Allah, fattabi'uni yuhibbukum Allah. If you love Allah, say, O Muhammad, then follow me and Allah will love you. Allah will love you. Does that mean we're all going to get it right tomorrow? Absolutely not. It may be the fact that you woke up in the morning and you clip your nails from right hand to left hand because the Prophet ﷺ did it, that may save you from that. It may keep Iman in your heart. It may keep Iman in your heart. Yeah, right? It may be the fact that you just ate with your right hand. Why? I love that Habib ﷺ did it. I don't need a reason. The Prophet did it. And it kept Iman in your heart. It kept Iman in your heart forever. Then Yeah, but it's impractical. Like, we don't, like, I'm a lefty and you're a lefty. Like, Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab was a lefty, right? Where he was a lefty, and he said, this is my struggle, khalas. Because Habib Sallallahu did it, khalas, that's it. And that's muhabba. You don't need reasons for doing things when you're in love. Do I need a reason to celebrate my wife's anniversary? Do I need a reason? It's the most impractical thing in the world. You used to book a place, spend money, do this, buy flowers, come back to work. It's impractical. You don't need the reasons. The ROI here makes no sense. So, am I right? The ROI doesn't make any sense. But if you love them, who cares if the ROI? Who cares? You love somebody, you just do it because you love somebody. And what's love got to do with it? And then when you love each other for the sake of Allah. Now, time check. Okay. And it was related, and this is the hadith that we should all really think about. دخل مسجد دمشق بشام فإذا أنا بفتة الراق الثانية وإذا الناس لحوله وإذا اختلفوا في شيء أستدل إلى صوت على واحد. Sayyidina Mu'adh goes to Damascus, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, the emissary of the Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he goes to the mosque, and people start to crowd around him, because why? Mu'adh is here. Mu'adh is here. This is the right-hand companion of the Messenger of Allah, the emissary. هذا معاذ بن جبل فلما كان ضد الهجرة فوجدها في سبب الهجرة. And he came to migrate, they saw it, and they started to, honor him. In Ishaq, one of them says, فوجدته يصلي فأنتظره. Ishaq, one of the people there, sees him pray, and he waits for him to pray. He's watching Mu'adh pray. But awkward, you come to the masjid, and you're praying, and there's a guy sitting like right in front of you, just watching you pray. He's watching him pray the whole time. And after he prays, he says, Wallah, he just walks up to Sayyidina Mu'adh and says, Wallahi inni uhibbuka billah. Wallahi Mu'adh, I love you for the sake of Allah. I love you. He says, Billah? By God? He says, yeah. He says, by Allah. He says, by Allah? He says, yeah. He says, are you sure you love me? He says, yeah. And he grabbed him. He grabbed him by the beginning of his cloak, the corner of his cloak. And he brings him close with aggressiveness. فَقَالَ إِبْشِرْ. I'm giving you a glad tiding. I'm here to give you a glad tiding. فإني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول قال الله عز وجل. I heard the Prophet say that Allah said, وجبت محبتي متحابين فيا ومتجالسين فيا ومتزاورين فيا ومتبادلين فيا. My love is mandatory. It's wajib. Meaning I'll make it haram that I don't love the person that loves each other for my sake. That sits with each other for my sake. That visits each other for my sake, and they spend forth on each other for my sake. They just love each other for my sake. Why? Because Allah. I don't know why I love you, because Allah, I guess. They just love each other for my sake. Such that Allah will raise them in the judgment. And He'll start to ask the angels, أَيْنَ مُتَحَابِينَ فِيَّا? Where are the lovers who love each other for my sake? And they'll say, they're here, Ya Allah, they're here. And He'll raise their ranks. بَعْثُهُمْ كَأَيْ مَنَابِرَ نُورًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Like pulpits of light. Such that the prophets and the martyrs will look at them and say, such that we were in their place. Such that we were in their place. Just because there are two people that love each other for their sake. لا يظلهم ذلة يوم لا ظل إلا ظلة الله. And Allah will shade them in the day where there's no shade except for the shade of Allah. Because they love each other for their sake. That means you're going to the grocery store and you see somebody that's Muslim, and you see somebody that's a believer, somebody who's good, and you say Salaam alaikum, wa alaikum salam, and you don't know why. You just have affection towards them. Allah khalas. You love each other for the sake of, I don't even know your name, I just know I love you, God. Why? He said, whatever, Salaam alaikum, wa alaikum salam, khalas. If we don't, as a community, commit to making other people in our community feel like they're loved and part of the community have a sense of muhabba within the community, then people will flee from this religion like believers, like an arrow flees from a bow flees from his arrow. A bow flees from his arrow. And people will start leaving in Islam that's not necessarily the truth, but somebody else's articulation of Islam. That is not even Islam in the first place. And it's one that's void of any commitment to loving one another. Even if you, khalas, right? You have to love the ummah of Habib Sallallahu because he loved the ummah. If you don't like him, I feel whatever, who cares? You need to love them. Part of having membership in this community is loving the ummah of the Prophet. And who's the ummah of the Prophet? All Muslims? Who? Who's the ummah of the Prophet? Anybody post-revelation. Anybody post-revelation. That you have to have a firm commitment that they're going to also enter the garden by any means necessary. So this 21st advice that he says is share the joy of your brethren to the extent that you're keeping the non-obligatory fast, you will bring them to join in feasts and festivities. And Nafi reported that the Prophet said if somebody who is fasting joins their brethren and they ask them to break their fast, they should break it. Nawafil. That doesn't mean you start to do nafil fast and just walk into parties, knowing that, hey, like, I know I made the intention, but I'm just going to go to this party because I know that like I need. But like, there's so much of what the point of this hadith is that there's so much consideration for goodwill that your brother or sister has towards you, that if they prepared something for you out of love, you would rather break your fast than break their heart. And often, what do we take from this? Oftentimes, in our commitment to Islam, in our commitment to it, this is why societal, one should always commit to a serious study of Islam. Whether you go to institutions that are with us in the Chicagoland area, whether it's Bayan or Darul Qasim or Darul Salam or any in between, commit to a level of studying and sitting with bona fide ulama, because you'll understand that Islam is not a concrete set of rules, it's a preservation of the human spirit. It's a preservation of the ruh of human beings. And if I'm fasting, and my brother or sister invites me to their home, and out of just love and expectations from me, they prepare a feast, I shouldn't even tell them I'm fasting, I should just break my fast. Meaning, this is from adab, this is from good character. This is from good etiquette with that person. Such that you don't make them feel, I don't know what to do now because like I prepared the maqluba for them, and I haven't I haven't qalabbed it yet. But how do I prepare? Like, I made it, I spent all day working, now they can find out they're fasting. Well, first of all, why should you come if you're going to fast? The second question is like, the brother took all day cooking for you, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have a good sense of etiquette and you break your nawafil fast? Why? Look at this. Al-Hubb al-Ma'al Allah ba'd al-Fara'id. The most beloved action to Allah after the mandatory act, أن تدخل السرور إلى أخيك المسلم, to make another believer happy. To make another believer happy. Just to make them happy. That's the most beloved action to Allah, because the world, the dunya sucks. And it destroys you, and it makes you unhappy, and it tears you apart. The least we can do as believing brothers and sisters for each other is put some level of joy into each other's hearts. And some level of muhabba into each other's hearts. Even if that means I'm going to break my heart, I'm breaking my fast before I break your heart. I'm going to break my fast, I'd rather break my fast than break your heart with. Right? Because because this will give me paradise. This will give me Jannah. This will give me the rida of Allah. That I made a servant of Allah happy. I made an abd of Allah happy. One of the stories before we close for Q&A real quick. And there are a lot of questions about this. How do we do burnout? What are the boundaries that you have? What is the, you know what I'm saying? What's the Sharia ruling on these issues? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna Allah ma munkasirat al-qulub." Allah is with the broken heart. Allah is with the broken heart. Allah Ta'ala is with the broken heart. And that may be a broken heart of somebody who loved passed away. That you didn't get to the school you got into, you didn't get the job you wanted. He wanted to go to Medina, but Allah sent the Prophet to invite to Medina this time. Ashhadu ta'ala, may we all be united to Medina and Mecca. Or you saw oppression right in front and it makes you feel a certain way. Or you're watching these like genocidal videos and it's breaking your heart. If your heart is broken, that means Allah is with you. And if your heart is desensitized to a very human experience, what does that say about your heart and your connection to Allah? And then what does that say about you recognizing broken hearts within your communities and then within your spaces? And within the macro communities, how are you going to spread Islam? When the nature of Islam, the nature of da'wah, was the Prophet ﷺ going to people with broken hearts, mending them, and saying that they're giving you death, Allah's giving you life. Allah is calling to you, God is calling to you to what brings you life, which brings forth from you life, which actually gives you a sense of purpose and meaning. And the heartbreak that you went through is not one that is in vain. Rather, it's one that is recognizable because our whole community is in a state of brokenheartedness. And our community is in a state of pain. If you don't realize that, and you don't understand the hadith when the Prophet said, my ummah is like one body, and one of it suffers, the rest of it suffers from fever and sleeplessness. All of it suffers. All of it suffers. The entire community suffers. If one of us are homeless, all of us are homeless. All of us are homeless. If one of us are going through a very difficult period in our life, then all of us are going through a difficult period in our life as well, because we are a community. Because we're a community. So you can't lead. That's why Uncle Rafi Peterson always had told us over and over again, you can't teach what you don't know, you can't lead where you don't go, you can't reap what you don't sow. That's it. If you're going through difficulty and a broken heart, and you've mended yourself, you're going to recognize the next guy that goes through it, the next gal that goes through it. What's your job now? What's your job now? Show them that same love that Allah had shown you and got you out of that moment. And Allah Ta'ala, and that's loving each other for the sake of Allah. Do you not think that Allah on the day of judgment will be like, you were there for my servant when they were at their lowest, so I'm going to be there for you on the day of judgment? Don't even stand here, just enter the garden, it's fine. Like, it's fine, I got you, it's fine. You don't think that would happen? May Allah give us the garden. May Allah give us Jannah without any hisab. So you can't lead where you don't go, you can't teach what you don't know. So if you want to teach Islam, you have to learn Islam. If you want to teach this religion, you have to learn it. Otherwise, what are you teaching? You can't teach what you don't know. You have to build a community in order to teach. In order to teach it, you can't lead where you don't go. If you haven't been there, you're not going to take anybody with you. You're not taking anybody with you, and you don't reap what you don't sow. Be careful what you do. Be careful what you say. It's going to come back and bite you in the. That's what happens. So we take muhasabah of one another, and we take muhasabah of our community. We ask Allah for tawfiq and afiyah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alayhi wa sallam. Do we have Q&A, Megan? Or no? No? Any questions? Should we take 2 questions in one? No. One song.
So in the today's talk, you were talking about like obligations we have towards other Muslims and other believers and all that. So here's a question: like, obviously, at the end of the day, we're all going to have people in our lives that we don't necessarily like, we don't necessarily vibe with.
Yeah.
Are we in of itself? Like, if I don't like someone, am I sinning in of itself, like, or in of itself, or is there like how does that work?
If you don't like somebody, are you a state of sin?
I'm sorry.
If you don't like somebody, are you sinning, just not liking them?
Yes.
No, absolutely not. There's some people that are unlikable. The obligation of part of the kifaya, communal obligation, that every believer has as a believer, wouldn't happen if Allah knew that there are people we're not gonna like. You know what I mean? Some people are annoying, and some people are scum, and Allah is real. But you don't serve them because you like them, but you serve them because Allah says you owe me, you owe God their service, right? That's just what happens on the ground. How many Bedouins came and just annoyed the prophets? It's like, okay, this guy again, right? Like, you don't think that happened? When, like, a man comes to a man urinates in the messenger's mosque. How likable of an act is that? Like, you think the companions are just like, yeah, this is it. You know what I'm saying? They almost killed him. But they also had to serve him as a believer. had a believer and he has certain rights, period. And there's stories, and I can relate to more stories like that about him, like Misdah, the one who spread the rumor of the ifk, the rumor of Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, right? Misdah is the son or the nephew of Abu Bakr Siddiq. Who's Sayyidah Aisha? The daughter of Abu Bakr Siddiq. Who's funding Misdah's food and clothing because he was indigent for like 10 years? Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq. Abu Bakr literally says, I'm not gonna talk to him, I'm not gonna take care of him anymore. Because I don't like him. Look what he did. And Allah reveals the verse, it is not for the people of wealth amongst you to leave the poor, the disenfranchised, and the traveler. Forgive them and let them go. Would you not like God to forgive you? Right? He didn't like him, but he had to do what he had to do. Sometimes to build a community, you just gotta bite the bullet and you gotta do what you gotta do. Whether you like that person or don't like that person. Are you in a state of sin by not liking them? No. But are you in a state of heightened reward by doing what God told you for them, even if you don't like them? Yeah. When I say like here, it's not people doing serious transgressions. It's some people are just annoying. Some people are like you. Can I answer your question?
Yes.
One more question. We'll close. This you guys find it out.
Just bouncing off of what you just asked, what if that person is a transgressor? How do you deal with them?
Well, so it depends on what that is. Are they transgressing the hukuk of Allah? Like an open fast, an open denounce, like they're openly rebelling against Allah?
Yeah.
Then we leave them to be, Abdurrahman al-Akhdari said, وَلَا تَجْلِسُوا مَعَ فَاسِقٍ. Don't even sit with the fasiq. They're openly just, debasing, mocking, they're people who are mockers, right? Let them, you have to have some backbone, right? Our religion is not for pacifists. We're not a pacifist religion. So we're people of rahmah, we're people of khair. If they make tawbah, ahlan wa sahlan, red carpet open for them, but if they're transgressors with Allah, you don't even sit with them. You should have no affiliation with the fusaq, except for making dua that Allah changes their hearts. The second, if they have to transgress human beings, with almost violating people. So generally the Sharia would present this case to a qadi, and a qadi would decide if there are people who are part of your community or exited out of your community, right? Do they deserve redemption? Always. That door is never going to close, whether I like it, whether you like it. Have they lost rights of believers, like witnessing, like being close members of the community, like being positions of leadership in the community? Absolutely. They lose privileges that Allah has given believers. There's privilege and rights that we all have, right? And those through merit, they increase, and through dismerit, they decrease, demerit. And the demerit is that they actually lose their rights. So if somebody is in a position of leadership, it is proven that they have transgressed the bounds of the law by violating the people that Allah has given them, shepherding over it, they are removed from that place until further notice. That's what a qadi does, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I'll give you an example. I hear this all the time. My father, I'm a woman, my father is my wali, right? He's my wali. He has to also meet the conditions of wilayah. Meaning, he's a righteous Muslim, he's a righteous father, he's never transgressed, he's done all what Islam asked for him to take care of his daughter, and some more until then. If he violates or abuses or breaks down the Sharia, or doesn't follow the rules of Allah, or violates his daughter, or violates the passion of Allah, may Allah protect us all, he loses the right of what? Of wilayah. He's suspended at that post, and it goes to the community leader that is trustworthy, that is not her biological father, but can take the role of a father in her life. Does that answer your question? So yeah, should there be more? And this is why you can't just come to this is why we can't just come to classes of Islamic inspiration talks, which is beautiful. It's nice. It's good. We need it. We need tashjiyah. We need encouragement. But you also need to study this religion. Otherwise, you're not going to understand how to navigate things like that, right? And people are going to be like, well, your father's your father. He's always your wedding. Doesn't matter. And it's who told? We're okay, yeah, and right? What are the conditions? What are the conditions of wilayah, right? Al-wilayat al-am la tabdil wilayat al-khas. What the wilayah that Allah has given you as a woman, Allah can't take that from a particular wilayah or a particular authority that somebody else has over them. So people can lose privilege, right? And that's why being part of your community and having membership and having the rights that is part of the bare minimum of being part of the community is a privilege from God, not a right. It's a right. Does that answer your question?
I'm just thinking, like, what you're talking about would probably be more in, like, a Islamic state or Islamic country, but how would we deal with that over here?
Over here?
Yeah.
I think the first one is two things. Okay, threefold to be close. Sorry, I know I'm going fingers up, but there are three on the top of my head, and it probably means what I'm packing. The first one is you have to have a community that actually believes in this thing. Yeah, we're Muslim, but are we just like identitarian Muslims, or are we like Aqidah Muslims? Like we actually theologically believe in Islam. Or is this like an identity piece? Nothing's an identity piece that's going to happen over and over again, don't expect it to end, because you're just identified as Muslim. And so nothing really means anything to you. It's all fluid. My Islam is fluid, right? I'll pick and choose. They pick and choose whatever they want from it. Salah wala, right? That's the first thing. It is being committed and having a community that commits to timeless Muslim Islamic principles, period. The second is you need to take it upon yourself to start learning and empowering yourself, because nobody will do it for you. Nobody will do it for you. Don't expect them to come do it for you. You got to start learning from qualified teachers and taking on mashura and counsel from scholars and ulama, and you'll realize that this religion is vast, and the amount of wisdom that this faith has this religion is not a religion of stupid people, right? It's not dumb. Like it recognizes cases like this, and it recognizes cases like this in what's called out of the qillat al-mu'minin, where people who are minorities as well. It recognizes that, and it recognizes non-Muslim authority at times. At times, if it's better than Muslim authority, right? I'll give you an example. You have two rulers. One is really, really bad at like governance, but he's like a really good Muslim. One is like a really, really garbage Muslim, but he's really, really good at governance. Who takes priority in governance? Huh? The second one, no, not the first one, right? Because yeah, he prays the Hajj all night, but if he doesn't know how the streets lights work, why is he in the post, right? There is a level of common sense that ain't so common that Islam senses to be universalized, right? That's the second. The third, so you have to start studying, start learning. And the third is be in spaces like this where we can encourage and be around people that care about us enough to support anybody within the community that is going through something like this and not shame them. And create a space where they can be very, very clear about what happens to them, and have training for our community leaders like we're doing at Mosaic and other places, where we can talk about how we actually find positive solutions and protect people that have gone through transgressions like that, right? From spiritual way to wellness way, etc., etc. Those are the 3 ways I encourage them. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Okay, God bless you. And increase you, inshallah. ونسأل الله لنا وكمال التوفيق والحمد لله رب العالمين فسمع من نافع ومنتفع وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
Jazakallah khair for that really great and beneficial talk, Sheikh Umair. We've talked a lot today about learning from qualified teachers and creating a space, a community space. And I just want to encourage you all that if you feel like you've benefited from these talks, to consider donating to Mosaic using the QR code on the screen. And if you feel like anything that you can give, or if you can encourage your families or your parents to donate, that would be great. Just a quick reminder, we'll be having Maghrib shortly afterwards. I don't want to keep you away from that by any means, but we'll see you next Wednesday to continue our etiquette series. Wednesday at 7:30, and here in the QH basement. And just a reminder that the theology class at Aqidat al-Ulam will be Mondays, August 19th at 8 p.m. Central, virtually. There'll be a 10-week course, and please register online. Jazakallah khair, and we'll have the event for Maghrib.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح قامت الصلاة قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله